Hello and welcome to World Talks on TVP World with me, Ashim Kumar. The first anniversary of President Trump's second term comes up on the 20th of January. It has been a year of massive readjustment of domestic and foreign policy. The latest in a list of controversial actions has been Trump's insistence that the US must own Greenland, a sovereign territory, part of the Kingdom of Denmark. This has, unsurprisingly, sent shockwaves around the world, with Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk saying that it would, quote, be the end of the world as we know it, and calling it a catastrophe. Is a negotiated solution which does not upend the world order possible? Well, to explore that question, we're joined by Ian Brzezinski, the senior fellow at the Atlantic Council. Mr. Brzezinski, welcome to TVP World, and thank you very much for taking the time.
It's a pleasure to be here.
So, give me a bird's eye view of this demand by President Trump to take over Greenland. How realistic is it? I mean, is this a negotiating ploy, or do you expect some serious military action at the other extreme to make it happen?
You know, I think you have to first recognize he's serious about this. He made very clear in his inaugural address that one of his benchmarks of success for his second administration is territorial expansion. So that is an unfortunate reality. As for Greenland, it's very important that the alliance, Europe, is firm but doesn't overreact in its response to this demand by President Trump. Because the fact of the matter is, for every justification he's giving for this demand, he's already got it from the Danes and the defense agreement between the United States and Denmark.
So, if I'm understanding you correctly, you're saying basically this is a negotiating ploy rather than something he's prepared to take military action on.
It's a bid. It's an opening act. It'll probably continue for the course of the year, if not the course of his administration. But I think the administration, and certainly Washington, the United States as a whole, recognizes that Trump is asking for things that will do more damage to the United States and to the alliance than what this bid is worth for. I mean, think about it. He would create such damage to the alliance that would probably break apart. And that would do nothing to the benefit of the United States.
Right. I mean, I certainly want to come back to the impact on the NATO alliance and also the transatlantic relationship in general. But before we do that, yesterday there was a meeting between Secretary Rubio, Vice President Vance, and the Danish and Greenlandic foreign ministers. What can you tell us about the outcomes of that meeting?
It's pretty clear. They agreed to disagree. It's very clear the Trump administration will probably continue to press on with this demand. But I have to say two important things. One, the Danes are finally playing their cards correctly. They're not overreacting, but they're being more firm in their response. And second, they're doing things collaboratively with the other Europeans to address one of Trump's stated concerns, security in the Arctic. So the Nordics, the UK and others, France, are undertaking a military exercise to step up allied operations through NATO or bilaterally or through a coalition of the willing to reinforce security over there. This kind of calm but firm, steadfast response is appropriate. And by the way, that response is resonating very positively in the United States. Just last week, on one day alone, I counted 10 Republican senators who are strongly opposed to President Trump's demand for Greenland, including senators from the far right. And there are less than 20% of Americans who think this is a good idea. overwhelmingly, the American public thinks this is a bad idea.
Right. So a bill has also been introduced to reflect that attitude. But does it really have any teeth? Foreign policy is controlled by the president, isn't it?
I'm not so... the bill is more a reflection of the political atmosphere and political opinions on this issue in the United States. What it tells me is that if Trump is foolish to do something that would be so damaging to the alliance, it would be an anchor in his efforts to keep control of Congress in the midterm elections. He doesn't need more problems as he approaches November of this year. And if he acts stupidly, if he acts excessively on this quest of his, he will create exactly a problem that will contribute significantly to his difficulties as he approaches the midterm elections.
Well, certainly that's something that I'm sure he's bearing in mind as we move to the midterms. Now, talk to me about the European reaction. You've already mentioned the European force, nominal though it is, that is landing in Greenland. But how would you assess the unity, if you like, of European countries to this decision by President Trump?
Well, it's more of a quest than it is a decision, because he hasn't attained anything yet. But I think this European solidarity is important. And what impresses me about it is that it's firm, calm, and backed by action addressing a shared transatlantic concern, which is the security of transatlantic interests in the Arctic. So these are good moves by the Europeans.
OK, now, of course, on the other side, Ukraine is fighting a full-scale invasion from Russia, and European attention has been distracted with this Greenland issue. What do you think Putin's response is going to be, and how do you think he's feeling in the Kremlin right now?
He's probably amazed this is happening. He may not even believe it's happening, because for him it reflects a fissure in the alliance, and potentially a truly tragic one. So one of the worst consequences of this quest of President Trump and the way he's pursuing it in such a bold fashion is that it's creating transatlantic divisions. It's creating questions among our Europeans about the credibility of the United States. And all of this, of course, emboldens Putin, and it makes it more difficult to pressure him into coming to the negotiating table to accept a ceasefire on our terms.
Right, although he hasn't shown much willingness to do that thus far in any case. But yes, certainly it would seem that he now seems to be taking advantage of the fact that there is this disunity in the transatlantic relationship. Now, on the 20th of this month, we'll be acknowledging the first anniversary of President Trump's second term. How would you assess his performance this year?
It's impressive in terms of his energy and the amount of different initiatives he's driving forward. I think that reflects 4 years of experience in his first term, 4 years of resting up and planning and developing an agenda, and, good execution. The unfortunate thing is that it's a disruptive agenda, and certainly on the international sphere, it's undermining American interests. It's not good that he's doing things that are undermining American credibility within the Euro-Atlantic community. That's creating the perception among our adversaries of the transatlantic community may be less unified, possibly divided. Those things are of real concern.
What about for example, the arrest of the Venezuelan leader and his wife, Maduro? How has that kind of shouted out, if you like, his goals, his objectives in South America?
Well, you know, it's an action that's consistent with his world outlook, as articulated in his national security strategy, where he basically called for a hunkering down of America's defense posture in the Western Hemisphere, a sphere of American domination over the Western Hemisphere. So this is very consistent with that. That operation was actually an exquisite demonstration of American power. And it was truly successful, but only as a tactical operation. Now he's bid into something that he owns, and we'll have to see if he's actually able to kind of help Venezuela transition to a democracy. And right now, that's very uncertain.
Right. Well, another area of uncertainty, of course, is protection of the Taiwan Straits and protecting Taiwan against Chinese invasion, which, you know, they've been threatening for a couple of years now. Now, that's, strategically speaking, an area that President Trump cannot afford to ignore. Is he taking his eyes off that ball as well, in your opinion?
To a certain degree, he's communicating that. His national security strategy, you know, gives particular emphasis on the Western Hemisphere, talks about American domination in the Western Hemisphere, and signals an acceptance of spheres of influence elsewhere in the world, be it Europe and also the Indo-Pacific. So it may not be so much a taking the eyes off inadvertently, it's an almost intentional diversion of his eyes and attention, and a focusing on a region, in my view, that is not in the service of American interests in Europe or the Indo-Pacific. You know, if I could go on, just two distinctive elements of Trump's national security policy that is a break from 8 decades of U.S. national security policy is that this administration, this president, does not believe the United States has vital interests in Europe worth defending with the lives of our soldiers. The same applies for the Indo-Pacific. And with that comes a break from a second corollary of American national security policy, and that is the belief and the need to defend forward U.S. interests through the deployment of U.S. forces, robust deployments of U.S. forces abroad, in Europe, in Japan, in Korea. So we're seeing a retraction from those two enduring principles. And I am hopeful that he will not be able to fully execute that, but that is the direction he's taking U.S. national security policy.
But surely, in terms of the impact it would have on world trade, which would directly and indirectly impact the United States, he's got to protect free shipping through the Taiwan Straits, isn't he?
I would agree with that. And to a certain degree, he's indicated he's willing to protect the major trade routes, his military operations in the Middle East. In some ways, he's stepped up some of our security presence in the Philippines. We have 2 carriers in the Indo-Pacific. But when it comes down to permanent force presence, we're on a path to reductions. How far it'll go is uncertain, but that's the direction we're headed.
Well, we'll be watching closely and seeing what happens, not only with Greenland, but with other activity by President Trump internationally. Mr. Brzezinski, thank you very much indeed for coming along and sharing your analysis with our audience. Have a good evening, sir.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you. Bye. And that brings us to the end of this episode of World Talks. Don't go away. Lots more coming up. Goodbye.